Доброго дня, всіх рада бачити. Вітання, пане Святославе. А, Почекаємо ще буквально декілька хвилин. Я одразу
Let us
скажу,
wait for another few
тут
minutes.
є
Let me
опція
immediately tell you that we
перекладу.
have the option
Є
in the lower
опція
panel. There is the
переклад,
option of
така намальована
translation,
планетка. Якщо на
interpretation.
неї
There is a
натиснути, ви
planet
можете
sign there.
обрати українську або
If you press
англійську,
on it,
і
you
буде
can choose
йти
English or
переклад.
Ukrainian, and there will be a
Hi everyone, if
translation.
you are listening to me in Ukrainian, I'll switch to English, and I'm just telling that you can pick your language through this interpretation icon that you see on the dashboard below. The working language will be Ukrainian for today, but we like have this open microphone, and if you would like to ask some questions or comments in English, please do it because we'll have simultaneous translation. We'll start in a few minutes. And hope we'll have a very nice discussion today. Вітання, пане Олександре. Я так потроху бачу, де включаються наші спікери.
Доброго дня, я
Вітання,
перепрошую.
Володимире.
Я з лікарні, тому не при галстукі.
Але слухайте, оце у вас жага до просування корпоративного врядування з лікарні і одразу до нас. Ви тако там побудете трохи, то корпоратизуєте і лікарню. Це насправді теж зараз одна з сфер, куди ще можна
І
рухатись.
такий проєкт є, направду. Ну, я тут не для цього, але...
Дуже гарно. Нас вже дуже багато в Zoom, тому я думаю, що насправді можемо
I think we have
за
a lot of people
хвилинку
already in
починати.
Zoom. I think when we can start in some 2 minutes.
Олександр
Let me
Федорович,
clarify with
будемо
Alexander
офіційно
Fedorovich,
починати.
and we will be starting officially.
Вітання. До нас підключилось управління комунального майна Миколаївської міської ради. Пані Ірино, дуже вас рада бачити.
Miss Irina, very happy to see you. Welcome.
Де Надя? Сьогодні останній день вона працює. Я за всі місяці, за квітень, за травень, за червень.
Це у нас по чому?
Це по асоціації цей стандартів. Це кримінальна реформа.
Так, вітання ще раз.
Once again, welcome to everybody. Let us start. My name is Yulia Mincheva. I'm the chief of the Integrity Office with Mykolayiv City Council, and we have Alexander Fedorovich, and I'm coordinating the cooperation of cities with anti-corruption initiative of the EU. Today we have gathered to talk about the future of the Mykolaєва namely how to improve, how to implement corporate governance, which in itself has quite a revolutionary idea for the communal sphere in the country. We really hope that we will have that experience and the things we will be doing in Mykolayiv. This will be the second precedent where in the communal company of Ukraine it has been created and functioning the successful supervisory board. Allow me to say a few words about the format in which we're working. There will be a presentation. After that, there will be followed by the discussion how supervisory boards can improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the communal companies. We will be talking not only about Mykolaєва but in general about this sphere. We will be very happy to join that we will be joined by Oleksiy Mowchan, Deputy Head of the Committee of the Верховної Ради of Ukraine on Economic Development, who is taking care of that at the legislative level. We will also start from one welcome remark from Taras Sluchik, team leader of the EU ACI Integrity City component, and Alexander Sienkiewicz, the mayor of Mykolayiv, will have some concluding remarks. He will say his words already after he has heard it. He is also with us. The presentation will be by Volodymyr Igonin and Alexander Omanev. These are the consultants that we are very happy to have engaged to this exercise. Both Volodymyr and Alexander are #1 specialists in corporate governance in the public and private sector, mostly in private because public is still developing, but it will be catching up. So allow me to pass the floor, first of all, to Taras Sluchik for the welcome remarks, and let's go to this presentation of the corporate governance roadmap. Taras, please, the floor is yours. Once again, I will remind you that we have the possibility to change the language. If you're not listening, if you don't understand Ukrainian, then you can use the interpretation. Please choose the language which is more convenient for you. Thank you, Taras. The floor is yours. Yulia, apologies. Please tell me, are we recording this event? It's not only recorded. Theoretically, we are even online in all Facebook platforms we already have to be. Therefore, yes, everybody's seeing everything and everybody can join in comments and ask questions. Thank you. Thank you so much, Yulia. Good afternoon to everybody. I'm Taras Sluchik. I'm the team leader of the EU ACI Integrity City component. That's the biggest program of the European Union, which also is co-financed and organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, and Mykolayiv is one of our key partners because we are the program which is focused on assisting the city of Mykolayiv in effectiveness, resultiveness of work, and accountability. Therefore, we are working also with communal companies of the city council. I would like to thank to the mayor of Mykolayiv and his team for this initiative to work with the Mykolaєва We understand that this company belongs to the critical infrastructure, which is quite poor conditions because on the one hand, it has to give services to the residents, but on the other hand, because of the Russians have destroyed and continue to destroy infrastructure, that's quite difficult to do. But in any case, first of all, I would like to thank also the team of Vasily Kisil and partners who have agreed very quickly to join our cooperation with the Mykolaєва For us, it's important, something that the communal companies of the critical infrastructure of the Mykolayiv City Council were effective. It's important that they would bring results and that they would be accountable. For us, it's also important that those initiatives that belong to accountability and transparency of operation of the communal companies were implemented. We want them to be sustainable, and these changes would be irreversible. Today's presentation, it is important because for us it's a roadmap and the next steps for the next a year and a half in terms of cooperation with the owner, the executive body of the Mykolaїв City Council and the Mykolaїва Водоканал. Also, I would like to say that starting with, we started to work with Mykolaїва Водоканал last year. Deloitte was doing the assessment of integrity of the communal company. Now they are developing the step-by-step plan of the priority measures to be implemented together with the executive body of the Mykolaїва Водоканал, and definitely we are supporting it. I would like to tell you that we are planning to work in the future using the initiative in case Alexander continues this. We will be happy to continue cooperation with Mykolaїv and with the executive bodies. For us, the elements of corporate governance are critically important. Not because this is something very fashionable, but it's the only instrument that factually has already been working partially in the public sector, also in the private sector. Many thanks that the Lviv Водоканал has joined us. Svetoslav Pavlyuk, he can tell us about their experience, how they are cooperating, how they're operating as the supervisory board. I think this is the first example that is already operating as in terms of the supervisory board in the communal companies regarding the basic practices of OECD. Also, in the end, I also wanted to mention, since we are the program which is implemented by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark, in our cooperation with Водоканал, with the city, we take into account the general framework of partnership between the government of Denmark and Mykolaїv. We understand that Mykolaїva Водоканал is one of the key partners for the government of Denmark, for the international financial organizations who are also co-financed by the government of Denmark. Therefore, the effectiveness, result-orientedness, and transparency and accountability is not only something that influences the reputation of the company, but also reputation of the city, and namely the reputation of the state itself, because cooperation with the government of Denmark, Mykolaїva Водоканал, Mykolaїv, and the country, it's not only cooperation about some delivery of generators, it's about general common development. Therefore, I believe, same as our international partners, they're very much interested that Mykolaїva Водоканал and the owner of this executive body, the city council, would work effectively and with result-orientedness in mind. And that's why one of the elements that can do that is the element of the corporate governance that we will be talking about, Vasil Kisil and partners. So from my side, that seems all. I would also like to thank those who have joined on this day to this presentation. I would pass the floor to Vasil Kisil and partners to make sure we can start our presentation and we will go to work. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Taras. Volodymyr, you can share the presentation on your screen. Volodymyr Igonin, the partner, Vasil Kisil and partners, law firm. His team has been working over the last months very actively, very intensively on the development of this document. Volodymyr, is it working out? Yes, thank you so much for the introduction. I will save some time. I can tell you that today is a very symbolic meeting, and I can't help citing my most favorite article of the Constitution on obligations and the communal obligation. The Gramada has to take care of its property. That's what we are doing today. We started a little bit earlier, but today we will be presenting to you high-level results of our work, because in reality there will be a much more detailed report ahead where the colleagues from the Anti-Corruption Initiative will supply to you separately once we finalize it. But today we will try to, in a very concentrated manner, to pass the main ideas. Some of them maybe we can discuss later. And taking this opportunity, I would like to present Alexander Okonev. That's the head of the Council of the Professional Association of Corporate Governance. I really believe this association, so I had to join the management board of this association, and I really believe that we are spreading, disseminating good practices of corporate governance in Ukraine and helping Ukrainian business and the state and the communal sector to implement those mechanisms which are in reality are already tested in that developed part of the world where we're striving to be a part of. And we do believe in these instruments, and we are always happy to implement them in Ukraine. So allow me to go over to the presentation. Just a second.
Я тут одразу скажу, що ви можете питання задавати або в
And I
чат,
can also tell you that you can put your questions in chat or raise hands. Also, we will have the Q&A session after the presentation. Can you see my presentation now? No, not yet.
Зараз не видно.
Not yet.
Потрібно використати функцію демонстрації екрану.
Please use the function of screen demonstration. Now we can see it.
Ну, я просто знаю, що коли так робити,
I only
тоді
know
вона
that,
не на весь екран. Чи зараз на весь
Then
екран?
it's not on the full screen.
Зараз ні, але я думаю, що якщо
No,
ви
not
F5
yet.
натиснете, то все
But if you
буде,
press F5,
має
that
бути.
everything will be magic.
Мене ніколи ця кнопка не
That function doesn't let me down at any time.
Мгм. Ні, зараз все пропало.
Everything is gone now.
Тепер видно, але не повний екран, так?
Now you can see it,
Так,
but not the
можливо,
full
хтось з
screen.
технічної частини зможе зараз допомогти.
Maybe
з цим.
somebody can help us with the
Дивіться,
technical
і
part.
потрібно просто зліва зверху
It's
спочатку
important.
натиснути.
Press start.
Воно сховалося. Показ слайдів по центру зверху. Або дивіться, знизу у вас є знизу з правої сторони 52%. І да, от
Так.
тут якось спробуємо натиснути.
Як зараз? Получилось?
How's it now?
А підскажіть,
Зараз.
будь ласка, у вас два екрани?
Так, у мене два екрани.
А тоді вам потрібно в демонстрації екрана
Then in
вибрати
the screen
пункт,
demonstration, you have to
Screen 2 або
select
Desktop 2,
screen 2 or
якщо у
desktop
вас воно
2
виходить на
in
вихід.
case it's coming out to the whole
Можемо
screen.
в інтересах економії часу підемо в
So
такому
for the sake
режимі?
of saving time, we can go in this mode, or it's
Ні,
not
видно
nice to
насправді
see.
добре, можемо поки
It's seen
піти в
quite
такому
okay.
режимі,
We can go in this
а
mode.
далі, як будемо бачити, що довша історія, то змінимо на інший. Але в цілому зараз видно добре, тому можемо починати.
Видно, да? Окей, хорошо.
Так, видно
Так,
добре.
давайте тоді не витрачати колективний час, підемо далі. На цьому слайді стислий огляд. Ми почнемо з того, що
On this
зафіксуємо такі
particular
дуже
slide, there is
загальні
a
і
short
найголовніші виклики,
description.
які
We would like to talk about most important challenges and objectives to make sure we can understand from where we are starting and with which challenges our exercise for the improvement of the corporate governance, where we are aiming at and what we want to receive. So we have 5 main recommendations and 5 steps that combine the whole set of measures. So regarding these 5 recommendations, let's go over very quickly. I will not read into them. You can see these bullets.
Покажемо цільову структуру корпоративного врядування Миколаївського водоканалу. Ну, це така певна буде ідеальна картина в тому плані, що від неї
Will be an ideal
в
picture.
тому плані ідеально, що вона там найкраща з усіх можливих. А в тому плані, що це
It's
певний
not that
орієнтир,
it's the best, but it's certain target that it can be taken into account based on some practical approaches in the practical, and we can end up with main steps for implementation, which specific actions should be done to understand where we are now and where we want to get. So what are the challenges? Definitely these are not all. These are the main ones that are important to see.
Який не дозволяє постачати питну воду. Це таке значне об'єктивне обмеження,
That's
яке ми не можемо не
destroyed
враховувати,
water pipeline.
очевидно
We
впливає
can't
на
because it influences the activity of the Mykolaївводоканал. And the second infrastructure challenge, it's not high quality of the water in the pipeline, and unfortunately, already having this infrastructure, which is definitely not modern, and because of that, we have certain objective limitations. Apart from infrastructure, we have some managerial challenges. We are seeing them in terms of that there is no fixed strategy, strategical objective of the Mykolaївводоканал. Maybe it does exist somewhere, and from generation to generation it is transferred, but on the official... Володимир, the slides are not transferred.
Не перемикаються слайди, а всім дуже цікаво, щоб ці виклики були написані на третьому слайді.
Please go to the third slide because we don't see the slides changing. And if you're going to share your screen,
тоді у вас буде, я думаю, відображатися.
Please
Або можемо зробити простіше.
do it full screen. Or you can send us your presentation and we will share it for you.
Тоді одну секунду.
Зроблю останню. Ви поки робіть
We have this presentation. I will make the final attempt to share my screen in an appropriate way.
Ви коли нажимаєте share screen, там є варіант
When you click on share screen button, you see the desktop or desktop 2 option, and you can select the desktop 2 or screen 2.
Давай попробуй виведити. Якщо у тебе вийде, тоді ти нас будеш вести. Так, бо якщо ви не бачите слайдів, це, безумовно, трошки у нас обмежує ефект.
Ви прийшли подивитися на слайди?
Так, зараз ми...
It's not a good thing if you cannot see the slides. Thus,
Порівняно зі зруйнованим
have a limited effect with our presentation. Okay, hopefully we will cope with this technical issue.
Я вас поки познайомлю один з одним. У нас тут дуже класна аудиторія зібралась, тому що крім
In
того,
the
що
meantime, I'll introduce you to each other. We've got a representative audience.
яких є свої водоканали.
There are Mykolaїв partners, and there are also representatives of other cities operating their own water lines. Hopefully, this discussion is going to be highly productive and inspiring for the partners, colleagues.
Добре, що за цей час до нас приєднались багато інших гостей, тому ви нічого не пропустили.
As far as I see, we've got many participants, but don't worry, you have not missed anything yet.
Перемога. Давайте одразу на третій слайд.
Great, we managed. Now let's go to the third slide.
Відновлюємо
Vladimir,
нашу презентацію.
let's resume the presentation. Now I've been talking about the challenges. I've mentioned infrastructural and technical challenges we have already coped with. There are some management challenges. One of them is lack of the strategic goals captured in some document, and it is very difficult to control the enterprise unless there are strategic goals, unless there are measurable outcomes. Then the financial status of Mykolaївводоканal is also unsatisfactory, and it requires additional funding, and the community, of course, is not interested in funding the Водоканал out of its pocket. What can be done to change the situation. Step number 1 is to specify the strategy and long-term goals of Mykolaїва Водоканал to realize why we're going to implement the corporate governance tools, and finally, what are we going to do about the Водоканал. I have to mention that currently Ukraine is actively transforming the corporate governance in the public sector. Yulia has mentioned Alexei Movchan, and I would like to congratulate him and other MPs and partners of Ukraine who succeeded in the corporate governance reform, because the new law has already come into effect. Why is it so important for us? Because it does not regulate the sector of utilities directly. However, it offers the construction for troubleshooting and was approved by international partners who focused on the best practices of cooperation and development. Lots of partners such as BRD and many others participated in this discussion. So this is the result of collective efforts. It's a big victory, and thus we've got a set of tools working for the utilities sector. OECD recommendations are aimed, first of all, at state-owned enterprises, and utilities enterprises also fall into this category. The utilities sector has still its peculiarities. However, these proposed models are still applicable. That's why we would like to focus on them. At the moment, actually, this is not the direct requirement of the law. We are aware of some efforts being underway, and as soon as corporate governance in the public sector is over, our lawmaker will pay attention to the utilities sector. It says that the logic of state-owned enterprises will be also applied to the utilities sector. There is a certain vertical or pyramid starting with the ownership policy. Currently, the law provides for the single ownership policy covering the entire sector of state-owned enterprises. There are over 300 of them, and a document is being developed that will regulate the management of the full array of these state-owned enterprises. We know as insiders, of course, challenges we are going to face with. This policy ownership is the foundation, because the state is the owner. While in our situation, the owner is the community. The community has to decide why it owns this or that enterprise, why it cannot be privatized, and in what way it's going to manage it. And this will result in the goals definition. Mykolaївводоканал does not mandatorily have to call this a document ownership policy. It can be a part of another document. At the same time, it will fulfill the role of goal setting, because otherwise it won't be possible to build up on these goals. The next layer is the list of owner's expectations. After the owner has explained why it needs the enterprise, it can set the particular assignments for the enterprises, so it can define its expectations, like financial, non-financial, operational, and non-operational. These objectives can be defined for 3 years, and they shall be regularly updated. The enterprises then will be obliged to come up with this, to comply with these objectives. To this end, the supervisory board has to develop the strategic development plan. This is the document that will give an answer to the question about achieving the objectives and meeting the owner's expectations. And on the basis of the strategic plan, the operational annual plans like financial investment plans can be drafted. So this is the construction consisting of 4 pillars aimed at efficient enterprise management. So the enterprise has to see clear goals, has to see clear expectations, and on the other hand, the ownership is not going to intervene with the operational activity because this is actually the role of the board. We recommend this model as a guideline for Mykolaїв Водоканал. We expect that very soon such model will be captured, will be enshrined in legislation for the utilities sector. We have studied the situation in the foreign companies' policies. I'm not going to read this text out. You can see it on the screen, but you can quite clearly see the examples of such objectives. And Mykolaїv may set its own goals, may pursue its own objectives, and we are not going to replicate what we have just given as an example on the screen. Now let's discuss the reporting within the system proposed. Mykolaїv City Council is virtually an owner. The supervisory board has to report regarding the implementation of the goals. Please pay attention that these names, these titles, supervisory board, is tentative. It doesn't matter how we are going to call these bodies, but the main thing that this should be the body accountable to the owner. Then the supervisory board, after drafting the strategic development plan, has to present it to the director, and the director in his or her turn should report on annual implementation of the strategic plan. So director is accountable to the supervisory board, while the board is accountable to the owner, the city council. The supervisory board is an important player within the corporate governance. Efficient corporate governance is not possible without the board. Why do we need it? It can fulfill controlling and strategic functions, and thus they will be separated from the operational function. The operational control will remain in the hands of the management, while the strategic supervision and control will still belong to the supervisory board. Then the board has to facilitate solving infrastructural challenges. The pipeline highly depends on the development of some infrastructural projects. So the board can be also involved in advocacy. Then advocacy can be a good support to any director, to any CEO. So any CEO will benefit from the board because the board can well, let's
Сприяння
say,
вирішенню
give
управлінських
the
питань, тобто це оперативний
proper
контроль,
direction and
вища
set
якість
the tone.
дискусії, тому що, в принципі,
Then
є
the
кому
board can
почеленджити ті рішення, які пропонує
foster
Микола.
solving the
Наглядова рада
managerial
допомагає по-іншому завдяки
challenges.
своїй
The
композиції. Ми
supervisory
пізніше про це
board, due to
поговоримо.
its
Олександр
composition,
окремо
and we
включиться
will
і
discuss it later with
розкаже,
Alexander,
як правильно сформувати наглядову раду. І
he will
оця
tell us more
інклюзивність
about the
формування
proper
наглядової ради, вона
composition
якраз і
of the
допомагає
board.
по-різному
So
дивитися
the
на
inclusive
проблеми і давати
supervisory
якісне
board
рішення. Ну і
helps
забезпечувати оцю різноманітність.
to
Чим вона керується?
analyze
Наглядова рада.
the
Ну, вона керується законом,
problems from
насамперед це
various point
податків,
of
цивільний
views and
кодекс і інші документи.
propose
Треба розуміти, що
best
господарський кодекс, можливо,
solutions. The
невдовзі буде
supervisory
застосований, і там положення перейдуть
board
в
can
інший,
be
в інший нормативний
guided
акт, але
by
це для нас
the
не
uh,
критично і не важливо, так чи інше регулювання
commercial
якесь
code,
буде, і
but
закон
we
регулювати
should not
наглядову
exclude
раду буде.
the possibility
Крім
that this
закону, це статути
code
положення
will
про
be
наглядову раду,
abolished
вони
soon.
затверджуються вже на
Then
рівні
the
підприємства. Ну, статут
board
затверджує
should
власник
be
Миколаївська
guided
міська рада.
by
І ще
its
важливі джерела
statute
– це, власне,
approved
контракти,
by
тобто
the
договори з
owner.
членами
And
наглядової ради,
another
які визначають
important
обов'язки
source of
членів
regulation is
наглядової ради.
the agreements with
Функції
the
ключові, не всі, але
supervisory board
головні. Призначення
members.
та звільнення
So what
директора,
are
оцінка
the
його
key
роботи, формування
functions? So
стратегії
the
розвитку
board
та
has
показники
to
результативності,
appoint and
відповідає за
dismiss
комунікації
the
підприємства з
CEO and
власником,
assess
тобто
his
в
or
нашому
her
випадку
performance, has to
Миколаївською міською
develop
радою,
the
так, і
strategy
місцеві
of
стандартами, тому
водоканal
що це
development and
достатньо типова
also
роль
comes up with
наглядової
the
ради виступати такими
performance
амбасадорами
indicators,
підприємства
then
і
the
підхоплювати якісь
supervisory
такі
board can be in
стратегічні
charge of
комунікації.
communication
Безумовно, це там не
between
договори
the
не
enterprise
ставають,
and
але у
owners. So it
Миколаївського
can be like
водоканалу
an
є багато друзів.
ambassador. Of
Данія,
course,
напевно, номер один, і
the
тому
board
є якісь
should not
проєкти
care
важливі,
about such things as
які
procurement of
треба
stationery, for instance.
системно
But of
управляти саме
course,
переговорним процесом
Mykolayiv
і реалізацією
has
цих проєктів.
many
В якихось
friends and partners, and
неопераційних питаннях
it is
стратегічна рада
necessary
може
to
цю
manage
підтримку
the
забезпечити.
negotiations in a systemic way.
Важлива функція управління ризиками,
Another
ну і
important
погоджує важливі
function is
договори
risk
підприємства, мається на увазі
management.
якісь
And
такі
finally, the
суми,
board
якісь чи
has to
важливість яких
approve
достатньо чутлива
important
для того, щоб
contracts for the enterprises.
допомогти
I mean, the
менеджменту
contracts
прийняти зважене
that
правильне
might be
рішення
quite
і врахувати
sensitive.
все
So the
і
board may be helpful in
затвердити договір в інтересах
making right decisions
у
and
членів
approving
наглядової
the
ради є
contracts
так
in the
звані
interest of
фіскальні обов'язки. Це окрема
enterprises.
тема. Я просто це зараз
The
означу, але не будемо в
supervisory
це
board
витрачати час.
members
Коли
may
ви цю
have a
раду уже
so-called
створите,
fiduciary
є така хороша практика проведення
obligations. And then I'm not going
induction
to
session,
focus on
це
it now,
називається
but there is a good
введення
practice
в
of
посаду.
induction
От тоді про це ми
sessions.
рекомендуємо
So
поговорити
we
предметно і,
recommend to
власне,
discuss
довести членів наглядової
these
ради до фінішної роботи. Але
obligations
що важливо для нас, для Миколаївського водоканалу і для
with the
власників, що люди, які
immediately with the
потрапляють в наглядову
supervisory
раду,
board
вони за
members.
законом уже
Those who
відповідають за свої
become
дії.
members
Якщо вони
have to
порушують
be
свої обов'язки
liable
фідуціарні, тобто
for
діють там
their
неналежно, в
actions,
умовах
and if
конфлікту інтересу,
they
там недобросовісно,
violate
то вони
their
можуть бути
obligations, their
притягнуті
fiduciary
до цілком
obligations,
конкретної юридичної
then
відповідальності
they
за
can
стягнення
be
збитків. Це хороший
brought to
стримуючий фактор,
accountability,
і це
and
така
in
негативна
particular,
мотивація
they
для
can
того, щоб
be
робити свою роботу
forced
якісно,
to
сумлінно і
cover the losses,
ставитися
to
до
pay the
своїх
to pay damages.
обов'язків серйозно.
Thus,
Це
they will
складається з
be really
вищих якої
serious
роти, але ми це пропускаємо в
about
інтересах часу.
their
Як наглядова рада працює?
obligations.
Ну, рішення
In what
приймаються на
way
засіданнях.
is the supervisory
Засідання
board going to
є
operate? So
чергові,
the decisions
є
can be
позачергові.
made
Чергові, ну,
during the
щонайменш квартал. Раз на
regular
квартал,
or ordinary
як
and
правило, наглядова рада
extraordinary
збирається, говорить
meetings.
рік, це вже щоб
Ordinary
всім, значить, домашнім
meetings
зайнятися,
can
що
be
це хорошо
held
підприємства і можна
at
розвиватися.
least
Це, ну, на жаль, ми поки
once
що
in
не
3
цій
months.
тому, поки у
But
нас є чим зайнятися,
if
то як
they
мінімум
meet more
щокварталу
often, this
наглядова
means
рада
that they
збирається, можна частіше. А
doesn't
частіше
have
це
much
або
to
за
do.
потреби, ну і класика це
The
щорічні
meetings can
збори
be
або раз
also
на півроку для
summoned
того, щоб
ad
якусь
hoc.
певну дистанцію
The classic approach
перевірити,
is
бо завжди є
annual,
супротивники,
one annual meeting
Засідання скликає
or
голова або член наглядової ради, директор або інші
every
особи, визначені
6
законом. В нашому
months.
випадку можна
The
визначити,
meetings
наприклад,
can be
право міського
summoned
голови,
by the
бо це
head
чутливе
or
підприємство для
the
Миколаєва, для
uh,
громади, і
member
якщо
to the
міський голова
board by
бачить
the
в цьому
director
потребу і
and
необхідність,
other
то
persons
доцільно дати йому
specified in the
право
statute. For
скликати
instance, this can
засідання
be the
наглядової ради для того,
city
щоб таке
mayor.
питання оперативно
So the
підняти.
meetings can be
Голосування простою
summoned
більшістю, але можна
also
встановлювати
for
вищий поріг для критичних
solving some
питань. Це
operational
типова
issues.
практика, коли якісь справді
The
важливі критичні
voting
питання
is
вимагають кваліфікованої
envisaged for the
наприклад, там
meetings
не
and
більшості, а двох третин
the
або
rule
трьох
of
чвертей. Ну, це вже залежить
the
від контексту.
majority will be
Ну,
the
результати
working rule for
засідання
such
оформлюються в
meetings, and
конференції.
the
Статутування
results of
наглядової ради.
the meeting shall
Значить,
be presented as
щороку
the
наглядова
meeting
рада звітує
minutes.
власнику. Власник – це
The
міська
board has
міська
to
рада. І про що
report
є певні складові,
annually,
про що
has to
саме наглядова
submit annual
рада
reports
звітує.
to the
Тобто
city
склад, структура,
council,
діяльність,
and it
компетентність,
should
ефективність кожного члена,
also
незалежність, що
report
таке
on the
незалежність окремих
composition, structure,
ну і
activity of
виконання
the
наглядової
board, and the
ради, що
dependence
важливо,
of each
виконання
member.
наглядової ради поставлених цілей.
Finally,
Оце
the
головний
board has to
головна складова
report
цього
on
звіту.
the
Наглядова рада
performance
повинна
on
виправдовувати
achieving
свої
the
слова,
goals.
в
The
тому числі
board
витрати.
has to
Тому вона
justify
в
its
звіті
existence,
повинна
including the
зазначити,
cost of its
що вона,
existence or
власне, змогла
functioning. So
виконати в
this
тих
report
показателях, в тих
should
очікуваннях,
include
які власник їй сформулював.
information
От
on
вона
the
там рік пройшов,
goals
вона говорить,
achieved
ти,
and
власник, мені поставив
expectations
такі-то
met.
задачі, такі очікування.
For
От я
instance,
з
the
цим
owner
впоралася, з
has
цим
this
там
or
не
that
зовсім, а це я
expectation,
перевиконала,
and
як
then the
наглядова
board
рада.
has to
Тоді власник
report
приймає
whether it
рішення,
has
наскільки наглядова рада
managed to
виправдовує своє
meet these
існування.
expectations. Thus, it will be evident
Оцінювання
whether
– це
its existence is
його можна
justified.
поділити на дві частини. Тобто є самооцінювання, коли наглядова рада сама себе оцінює. Це хороша
The
практика,
assessment can be
правильно.
divided into
І
parts. One of them is self-assessment. It's a great practice because we are all promoting that. Many companies we help to do this self-assessment, but apart from self-assessment of its own, there is also the assessment of the supervisory board from the Mykolayiv City Council. Based on the results of the report that we talked about, the council takes into account certain things and makes certain decisions, but they can be, of course, adjusted sometime down the road. And of course, the owner can also make some important decisions about the management bodies of the company. The responsibility of the members of the supervisory board can be different. I mean, this could be civil damages, this could be responsibility for bankruptcy, this could be criminal. This can be discussed with the members of the supervisory board. It's a good stimulus to provide for the integral activity, and this mechanism. Let's talk about, okay, we have created a council, what it can be, who it can be part of, what kind of people will be part of this supervisory board. There is the basic approach that the supervisory board should be balanced. There should be independent members, and OECD recommends that we would have the majority of independent members, but that's okay, that's quite a flexible issue. We have to look at the situation. But it's important that in the supervisory board there are independent members, the ones that who can't be influenced in the decision-making process, the ones who didn't have any significant connections with the Vodokanal or the city council. So those who can look at it without any bias. And the ones that we call the representatives of the owner, they are dependent, they represent the interests of the owner in the council, they can be delegated from the city council or from the community. We came to a point that in your case, the approximate recommended number of people should be at least 5 people. And when we did meetings, when we were in Mykolayiv, and we had some 7 meetings, this basically the number that was supported by others. There was not anyone who would argue with us that this is too few or too much. That's a good number. The criteria of independence, they are on the screen. I will not read them out, but the point is that the independent member of the supervisory board, he doesn't have any previous background, he doesn't have any connections, either previous or current, that would bias his judgment. There are very specific formalized criteria. They can be always additionally clarified in case this is necessary, but in any case, it's important that this person is looking at this company without any bias. Of course, there are certain requirements to the members of the supervisory board. I would like to pass the floor to Alexander Okunev, because he has a huge experience in shaping supervisory board from the practical point of view, so he can really be the best to present this part. Thank you, Volodymyr. Thank you, everybody. Dear colleagues, thank you for your attention. Look, in reality, we have a lot of supervisory boards are created, both in the private and the public sector, but sometimes we have to publicly report, and the most difficult question, please give us the example where the supervisory board is really successful. Ukrainian example, meaning. And that is, as they say, a question that is difficult to answer. Why is like that? No, I mean, there are some successful councils, some successful boards, but they can be counted with hands of 2-3 hands. Why is this happening? Because the idea itself of the supervisory board, it has this 200 history and it's working everywhere in the world and is really recognized as successful. Americans, you can talk whatever you want about Americans, but you know, they can count money and they would not throw away the money for such kind of a component as a supervisory board. So I would not accept any remarks that this supervisory board is like extra wheel, like the fifth wheel. Yes, of course, there is a question always to the composition of the board, and that is not so easy in our conditions, because we understand that there are very few professional potential members of the supervisory board. We can, during our discussion, talk more in detail about it. So what are the requirements to members of the supervisory board, to anyone, irrespective of their professional background, his knowledge? Of course, there has to be some general requirements which are basically outlined on the screen. I will not go down for each of them. Yeah, maybe I will say a few words, because sometimes they are quite interesting, apart from the first one, which is quite understood. The second one is, unfortunately, we have a lot of members of the supervisory board who can't read the financial reporting, financial statements. It's not that they should be at all capable of being like a financial director, but if a person can't read the financial statement, what kind of use can be expected from such a person? They have some minimum knowledge of financial or non-financial director. This is a must to be there. Number 3 is successful experience. Many say about experience, that's all right, but let me add really successful experience. This person has to clearly tell you where this person has participated, has headed the resolution of the problem, which is relevant for your company. Yes, we can say that basically the composition of the board has to meet those challenges that are in front of the company that Volodymyr has talked about. So choosing people, we have to select people who are capable of solving these problems, challenges, those issues that are raising in front of the company. So there has to be really a successful experience of really solving something similar, not just working in Vodokanal, but really having a successful experience in resolving this. Next one is the ability and willingness to express independent professional judgment. Being a professional, any person understands that, of course, they understand what the owner, the director would want to hear from them. That's natural. And the person who is in the supervisory board, they should be able to say not what they want to hear from her, but rather what this person believes. Not to be silent, not to abstain from voting, not to go away from voting, but to say it clear and to vote in such a way how you think, because otherwise there is simply no sense in case this is different. About the business reputation, I will not talk that much. The absence of conflict of interest, this is also very much self-sufficient, self-explanatory. About the possibility to work in the supervisory board. In Ukraine, that's like 50 days per year. sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's more or less 50 working days per year. And you understand, the supervisory board doesn't work 24/7 like a CEO. It really works less, but you have to have the possibility, and you understand definitely in the contracts you will foresee how many days per year you expect the member of the supervisory board to work there, how much they should be there, and you will be paying correspondingly. That's very important. And definitely, regarding the independence, it's clear. And yes, the life is that sometimes there have to be some extraordinary meetings, and you have to be really responsive to put it as a priority, because if the member of the supervisory board is not accessible, not available, very often this is the case. This person is really not bringing that much use. Let us think about the special requirements of the... We have made such a table for you. Vladimir has said about why by 5 people. I can also add that you can also start off from the committee issues. What is the idea behind the committees? Because the committees have to prepare issues to be considered at the meetings of the supervisory board. All the preliminary work, all this hard work, all research work, all consultative work, everything else that has to take place in the committees. At the supervisory board meeting, there only could be draft decision, either 1 or 2, maybe with alternatives, but already drafts of the prepared decisions, for which decisions or against which the preparatory work has to be done in the committees in any case. And as a rule, 2 committees are available in all companies, the audit and the committee for appointments and remuneration. And we understand what they're involved in. In our particular case, answering the questions and answering the challenges that I think it's important to create also the strategy committee, because the strategic process of the company has to be in the focus of supervisory board's attention, and somebody has to take care of this. So based on these 3 committees, we have written down the profiles of challenges and the profiles of people. And number 1, I will speak briefly, not to take your time, but during discussion and in the report in more detail, but during discussion, we can stop a little bit more on that, knowing that Vodokанал really demands engagement of investment of money, financing, let's put it properly, because investment is, of course, with the aim of receiving profit. It's mostly financing. Then somebody has to take care of that. Somebody has to direct the company into this direction, making sure that the company would be professionally involved in this. So we're thinking that this could be exactly a person who is representing the international partners. The second person should provide the financial control, the outside and inside, external and internal audit. This profile is clear. This is somebody who could be the head of the audit committee. This is somebody who would work previously in some big audit company, either as a financial director, or we will talk in more detail about that. The one who is doing these things. Let's jump so far. Let's not talk about the head, the chairperson of the supervisory board. Let's talk about the number 4. That's somebody who has a huge managerial experience in running business, company, big projects, who have the access, who have the experience to creating teams of successful top managers, who have chosen them, who have selected them, who have promoted them, who have stimulated them. To us, it seems that it would be very useful to this company. Could this be a representative of the owner or independent? Okay, maybe we can stop a little bit more on that in some general remarks. And the last, the what we call the industry expertise. Anywhere we would create the supervisory board, there is a need of the person who definitely knows how these businesses run on a daily basis somewhere. I do remember in Nova Pošta, when we had to consult them, they said we also need a person who was the operations director of DHL, for instance. We want to understand as clearly as possible how one big operator, maybe DHL, how they are doing many this daily operational organizational issues. It's important that there will be such a person who understands that. That's very important for this company, and of course it's also in our report what we can expect from such a person. Definitely, dear friends, that's the ideal portrait. Ideal from the point of view that we have drawn this on paper. It's easy on the paper. The key here is there are two important comments. Number one, this knowledge, the skills and profiles, they have to be collective in the supervisory board. Collective. That is, in reality, when you start to select, you can have someone who, conditionally speaking, who can basically be knowledgeable about audit, finances, investment, and has the relevant experience and is the leader in all spheres, in both spheres, and can take care of that. Then you will free up some. Okay, but from the other hand, you can have some necessity to take in two people with the experience in the industry from Ukraine and from abroad. And this could be even better. Therefore, so far, this is the ideal project. That's number one. Number two, I would really call on you to, first of all, to discuss and to approve these requirements, to talk that first requirements, then people. Because very often, unfortunately, discussing requirements, they say, let us adjust, because we have the candidate, a good candidate, but he doesn't have this particular property. Maybe we shall not put it up as the important element, and then this candidate will fit. So, in my opinion, first requirements, then the candidate. Then you're searching for candidates. Yes, we can move further with the presentation. Here, you will have one more important element in terms of some organizational issues relating to the search of the candidates. Because you are not the private sector. In the private sector, everything is easy. The owner decides, and that's it. And they're searching. In the state sector, there is a huge resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers and a lot of bylaws that regulate how it should happen in the public sector. Committee on appointments, there are procedures of selection, the competition, etc., etc. So you will have to invent, again, basically as same as public, or maybe you will have your own simplified procedure of selecting candidates and appointing it with the decision of the body of the local self-governance. Possibly there could be some competition commission that could develop requirements, publish them, and approve them, and conduct the selection. During the selection, this commission, as a rule, is forming some 3-4 candidates for each vacancy, and then the short list of candidates is already passed over to the self-governance body to be approved by the and then conclude with them corresponding agreements. Very often they ask, but where can we search for them? Would that be done by recruiters? Or yes, really, you have to really seriously be jumping into that, because unfortunately, as I said, there are not that many professional members of the supervisory board. And it really would be important that it would be professional, at least some people, several people. In which sense? Everybody have to be professional, but I mean the people who have to have experience. And I have recollected that we didn't touch on the chairman of the supervisory board. To me, the supervisory board chairman should be having 3 criteria. This person should have the experience of organizing the work of the supervisory board. Very often, by the way, both in private and in public companies, they make such a common mistake that they're searching for the most influential person or the owner of the company or some public official that they appoint to this position. And this person has no time. They don't have, they don't really understand how to organize this. And it's not really a priority for such a person. And then it is a problem, because if I am the head, if I'm the chairperson, nobody else can, and to be involved into this. But if the chairperson doesn't see it for themselves as a priority, definitely it's not flying. Therefore, experience of organizing the work. Number 2, as far as I'm concerned, this person should have this lobby role that would accompany the national part of your projects, and that also should be taken into account, because I think it's an important part.
Ну, в принципі, готовий там, звісно, готовий обговорювати. Да, я думаю, що на цьому
I'm
можу
ready
передати
to discuss
слово
this material, and with that I can hand it over to Volodymyr. Thank you very much. As far as I understand, we are running out of time. That's why I will speed up. Last but not least is the step number 5. It's frequently underestimated. I'll explain you why. Because corporate governance is often falsely mixed up with the supervisory board. So the supervisory board, of course, personifies the corporate governance, but the board only is not enough for the governance to function as a system. This is what we had this last step for. This is the step about the control and supervision system. It is constituted by various internal and external tools that never should replace external audit. External audit is a must, while the internal audit system helps you trace the problems faster and thus regularly check the performance of the enterprise. Then it's also about the risk management system. We are going to give more details in our report, because now we don't have enough time for that. And finally, compliance. All these tools are equally important, and altogether they ensure the smooth operation of the company. We may achieve a good synergy between the anti-corruption initiatives and supervisory board. Altogether, this should result in a good outcome. So the internal audit is directly recommended by OECD. This is what the international partners expect from Ukraine, because internal audit is quite a widespread practice. And finally, I'll introduce you to the target structure of our corporate governance. So let's go upside down. On the top, we see Mykolaev City Council that owns the Mykolaєва in the interest of the local community. Then we see the city mayor and the utilities department that operate the company. Then there is another link in the middle. This is the supervisory board, and then currently this link is absent. The board may consist of 3 committees covered by Alexander. Then we see the managerial level. It can be represented either by a sole director or by a collective body. That is the board of directors. We might discuss whether it's expedient to implement this body right now. So the managerial body runs the company in its day-to-day activity, but of course the supervisory board should never replace the director's functions and intervene with the micromanagement. The supervisory board should implement the supervision, while the managerial level should be represented either by a director or by a board of directors who can also be members to the supervisory board. And finally, we propose a very broad roadmap. However, we are going to provide more details. There will be all deliverables and so on. But let's just discuss the main milestones. Number 1 is the preparation for setting up the supervisory board. For this, we will need the meetings with the consultants, and we have to define the criteria for the board members. Then the personal composition of the board should be proposed, and the members should be developed, and this ends up with the contract signing. Then the procedure and the board members' roles should be defined on the induction session for the boards and first meetings of the board, supervisor board, and finally the board starts making decisions for the sake of the internal control, as mentioned, including risk management. Mykolaїв City Council as an owner has to approve several documents. One of them is the ownership policy, but it should not be entitled ownership policy. It may have some other headline. The main thing is that it answers the questions that we have already presented. The main thing is that this document covers the short-term and long-term expectations of the owner. And the Mykolaїва Водоканал statute should be amended with view to detailize the statutes and composition of the supervisory board. Then there should be provisions on the supervisory board, and the Mykolaїv City Council should approve a decision on the procedure for board member selection. The remuneration policy should be also detailized for the board and for the director. And then the strategic plan of the development and the operational plans for the management. And finally, some documents should be approved to capture the system of the internal control. The supervisory board, together with the partners, will be able then to implement efficient corporate governance. This is our sincere desire. Thank you very much for your attention. Many thanks, Vladimir and Alexander. Now I think it's time for a discussion, and we can start it in a slightly non-conventional way. We will start step aside from Mykolaївводоканал and will consult the representative of utilities being owned privately.
До того приватного сектору на рівні великих державних підприємств, і це там
This private ownership
комунальний сектор був тако поза
has been
межами
of the utilities has been slightly underestimated and lessened focus of attention. Now I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Олексій Мовчан, the head of the subcommittee of Верховна Рада on the economic development, because this is the place, this is the committee that decides on the legal and regulatory framework for the utilities sector. Олексій, I'm happy that you are with us. Please tell us what awaits us, what the future has in stock, because you are an insider of the reform and you can share some spoilers. Thank you very much, and many thanks to all the participants. It's crucial that Mykolaїв is already undertaken serious efforts to transform the public utilities company. It's a revolutionary development, I would say. Skeptical perhaps, but I'll say that it won't be a main feat unless the law starts working, because the independence of the governance is defined by the independence of the board members, and it's always a big question whether the members are independent. I wish your supervisory board brings fruit, yet the not only corporate governance legislation but also decentralization legislation will play the role in this process. So we wish you good luck, and definitely we are going to apply your experience, and if you make any mistakes, we will reflect it in the legislation. We know about the national level supervisory boards like Укренерго and Naftogaz. So there, the arbitration is in hands of the international organizations. But the question is, who is going to address the crisis of selection in your situation? So I'm not sure what institutional level will be. So we will consider that. So what we are doing. Earlier this year, we finalized the corporate governance reform for the state-owned enterprises, and it's fully consistent with the OECD recommendations. Legislation regulating the public sector of economy is quite far from OECD. It's closer to former USSR. There are lots of consortium theories and so on. We're trying to fix these bugs. OECD doesn't give recommendations on the utilities, public utilities companies, because when we are talking with them about public utilities, they think immediately of the companies that clean up the streets, that gives the corporate governance in public utilities sector. It's a big gap. It's like they use Starlinks and we use just hotspots.
Вона сильно відповідає вимогам, але тільки для державних. І там дуже багато своїх особливостей. На жаль,
існує до українського законодавства. Тобто ми взяли бенчмарк, який був в рекомендаціях OECD, і все одно зробили велику кількість
benchmark, and this is the OECD recommendation, and anyway, we made lots of exceptions because Ukrainian legislation cannot fully reflect the OECD recommendations. We've built a construction that I think will start working very soon, and the mistakes made by the government, by the companies, will be fixed by means of the state ownership policy document. It's expected in September. This will be a written information document that can be used as a guideline for the communities as well. And the draft law number 6013 is another important document which brings the corporate governance in Ukraine to the level required by OECD, not only for the state-owned companies, but for all kind of companies.
Чи оперативного управління. І визначаємо більш такі ринкові сучасні на перехідний період.
Specify modern approaches, including those that will be valid during the transitionary period. We are trying to adapt all the proposed approaches. It doesn't matter whether money or the building is owned by the community or an individual or the state. This draft law number 6013 envisages the abolishment of the commercial code. Hopefully, it will happen in late summer. So this is what we are engaged in. And thirdly, after the draft law number 6013 is passed, we are planning to launch the reform for the corporate governance reform for the public utilities sector. That's what you are doing now. After the draft 6013 comes into effect, the community will benefit from it. I will be closely following you in your activities. I wish you success, and we will capture all your rises and falls, and everything will be reflected in the future legislation. Thank you very much. Thank you. And now I have to switch to another meeting because the committee's meeting is running parallel. Yes, thank you very much. You can actually report on the committee about today's discussion. I would like to ask Alexei to stay because I would like to compliment on his speech, because it's important to maintain the dialogue rather than a monologue. Please do it now, provided that Alexei still has a couple of minutes to stay. Yes, I'll be very brief. As the Cities Association, we've submitted our comments for the draft law number 6013. We believe that the lawmaker is not really knowledgeable in the model of utilities sector governance. there is still a difference between business, so private companies and the utilities, public utilities companies, because the business's main goal is profit, while unfortunately Alexei has disconnected. He cannot hear you because his mobile phone has run out of charge. Let's wait for him. Let's wait for him to come back. Yes, okay. It's not a monologue. But using this opportunity, I would like to say the following. I would like to share my opinion. I have lots of thoughts, in fact. Okay, but while we're waiting for Alexei, I would like to hand it over to Svetoslav Pavluk, who is the head of supervisory board at Lviv Vodokanal. He is also the participant of the Cities Association of Ukraine, because Lviv Vodokanal is not his full-time work. The Lviv Vodokanal is privileged to have such a professional. Svetoslav, Alexei has mentioned that some conclusions can already be made and implemented in the legislation. What is your opinion on the supervisory boards in the public utilities sector? Your company has been has had the functioning supervisory board for half a year, so please share the experience. Yes, hello, Julia. Thank you for invitation. I'm happy to see the board members at least on the screen. I'm immensely grateful for this discussion, and I can share some insights. We actually are learning by doing. We have never had any guidelines, any recommendations, and you have always to answer the question, why do you need the board in your particular situation? The answer is just the good practice is not acceptable. So you have to have this answer for your context, because you have to know what kind of support you need.
І було якесь своє відчуття, навіщо ми туди приходимо. У нас просто фантастично зібралася команда.
We had a fantastic team there. We have Dmitro Novitsky, who is the representative of Ukr-Vodokanal Ecologia, that has practical experience in managing vodokanals. We have Roman Lapak, who is a lawyer, a legal specialist, who is working in the claim-related work, with a huge experience in the supervisory board with the National Bank. And also I have experience with cities, with projects, so we have also good communications, because both of them are not that much into communications. I think it has started to state which language I'm talking about. No, not necessary. And our first question, we have gathered several times trying to understand. We were listening to some companies, we met some management of the city, and we had a question. There is a certain list of some formal things which are written down in the regulation, in the statute, and the question was about the strategy and the plan, and the question was, what exactly you want, you as the owners, you as deputies, you as the mayor's office, what exactly you want? And we came over and we have said, like in the end of April, because we're working for the 4th months, we asked for the meeting with the parliamentaries to put together all fractions. What exactly you want from the company? Because this company is generating lots of losses a year, not so because it's bad, it has some fantastic indicators. It is really really good at decreasing costs. It's decreasing the excessive stuff. It's improving the quality of the water. This can be really shown. But this element of distrust with the community, this element of distrust from parliamentaries, and there is also some distrust from the population point of view. And we're seeing our role as, first of all, to help the city council to form what you want. The policy of ownership is the basis on which you should base your strategy. Of course, the Водоканал has its own strategy, what has to be done, but we can understand that the strategy can be that we are remaining as the losing company. The city council is putting aside 3 billion hryvnia, so we could have the low tariff and people would be happy. Again, the other side can be without losses, but that would entice doubling the tariff. But then we will talk about the reliability of supplies, and we can say that the costs will be decreasing, and there is also the process of Green Deal, climate neutrality, going back to the green energy sources, decreasing the need in energy. So the priorities also set up the strategy. The previous strategy was the vision of the director, which was even not formally approved. This was just a presentation that he presented to the city mayor, and that's all. Formally, it was not approved. So we came to the conclusion, what exactly you want. So this discussion in the city was also part of the consultants. With colleagues, we did this presentation, and it also did have sense. Yulia was there, and we really thought a lot what they have to do. They went on to do their homework, but they're not back yet. This is briefly about what we started this from. The second thing that we talked about is this basic expectation. This was in the vision of the city council. The work of the supervisory council supervisory board has to be 50 hours per month. We should have at least one meeting per week. In some one day or two, there are questions that are popping up that require this consideration, and it's very important to approve some important commercial issues for some like 5 million or up. And sometimes they would require this very quick meeting and some annotations, some research, etc., etc. So we are at this stage. And another important aspect that is concurrence of the position of the parliamentaries in the mayor's office. The mayors, the deputy mayors, each of them, the mayor has some distrust to the parliamentaries. They're making some problems to him. The parliamentaries are coming with problems and distrust the mayor. They wanted to make the political representation of all biggest parties in the supervisory board, but then they came to option that this has to be all independent people, and we are going away from this process. I think this is correct. This process is correct. It is quite difficult and complicated. Everybody is afraid to let it go, to give back the powers, to appoint the management, to fire the management. It's like something that is fearful, knowing that Водоканал, although the tariff has not changed during the 3 years, the company is deeply in losses, and this is exactly because of this deficit of these revenues. This is like forecasted deficit. We're trying to fight that, starting from communications and ending with some conversation with NERC. So this is like lobbying of interests to understand that their position would be that this is not the position of the political representatives, this is the position of the supervisory board. And I'm coming regularly with some TV channels trying to understand why this Водоканал should be considered good, what he has done really well, what are the results that can be really we should be proud of, and what kind of support we need to make some significant changes. Because in Lviv, they have their own geography. They have 4 directions of water supplies. One of them is the biggest of 120 kilometers. This is huge costs for pumping, for the uplift of the water, and energetically that's quite difficult, because in Ternopil there's 10-fold less, but in Lvov it's 27, the tariff in Ternopil 36. So you simply can't cover costs with this. So our function these days is forming trust between the mayor, the parliamentaries, and the population, to make sure that they would understand that it's not abstract, it's their ownership, it's their interest that the company would work well, that it would work reliably in the situation, that it would be ready to some shocks that we expect in the energy sector. I think I should finish at that. These are just some small reflections, because I can talk really a lot, and with some extracts from certain decisions, but that's how it looks like these days. Thank you so much. My only question of a more personal character: what made you join the supervisory board? Because what Alexander said, that it's very important that who exactly would be these members of the supervisory board, that we can take the best changes to the charter, write up a very good regulation, but in case these are the people who have these few characteristics, what exactly is your motivator? What is your why? Why have you joined? Why you have done this? Because this could help us to select another star team. That's my 3rd interview with the selection commission. Why you are heading towards this position? This has been something that has been interesting for me. This would be like a next step from my previous experience, and this was the first company of that scale and the experience that you can work up and also to spread around in other cities. So yes, of course, in our association we can spread this over to other cities, but we also had this and we had that, and also this is a professional growth. It's also a wish to help the company that I understand that I'm seeing that it's developing really well. So in our situation, this was slightly different from what you had. Here, the company had some vision, it was on a good trajectory, and we had to support this. In your situation, there are sometimes very difficult conditions, and it does require some prompts, some new contacts, some support from the society, from the civil society, because in your situation, you really have something different. In Lviv, the company is capable of giving high-quality services. Ours is not, and there is a range of some objective factors why this is happening like this. So you need, in my opinion, to form this supervisory board that will help you in your very specific situation to help the company get up and become really successful and very valuable and really meet the needs of the citizens to understand what is necessary, because not always you need to transfer these notions of what people want to exactly what they need. This is not one and the same thing. So we are trying also with our parliamentary, we want high-quality services. What is high-quality service? What are the signs of high-quality services? It's the number of interruptions, this is the pressure, this is the quality of water. So how we are describing? We don't know. It has to be quality. Okay, but they know how. They say the services are bad, but let us describe. When we talk about the policy of ownership, let us somehow describe what exactly we want to reach, and then we can justify. Of course, we can also prompt from the experience of other projects, other vodokanals. What else they need to look at? What else can be important for them? But once again, this should be a dialogue. It's like a joint training in building up trust, and I think this is our most precious role these days. Apologies. Everything is good, and most difficult. Alexander, I'm passing the floor to you. Alexei will reconnect, and we'll pass this over to him. In terms of the presentation and in terms of the focus of the self-governance onto the changes which we are having. How can you hear me? You can see me well? Yes. First of all, I would like to say that when we met with Mr. Alexei in the office of this company, he asked me, and I think I gave him a quite a clear reply why exactly we are doing this. Mr. Volodymyr, do you remember what I replied to you? Absolutely, it was all written down. Own water without subsidies from the budget of the community. Exactly so. Exactly, that says that the water has to be of drinking quality. The water, non-revenue, the number of leaks should be minimum and at an acceptable price for the citizens of Mykolaiv. Basically, I will try to talk not so quickly to make sure our international partners who are on this call would understand why we are all doing this. Why exactly I have started all of this? In the first place, today, the government of Denmark, with the city of Mykolaiv, showing to the whole Ukraine very unique, very extraordinary experience of cooperation at the level of the state and the city. This is quite unique. I don't see that elsewhere in Ukraine. In order to strengthen the trust of our partners to us, to show that we are reliable partners, that we are transparent partners, that we are trying to avoid any human factors which would lead to corruption, because corruption has systematic character, but it's based on human qualities. We are trying this question that pertain to budget of the city or our assistance from international partners. We're trying to make everything as transparent, as logical, as clear as possible. So the job for the business and for the city communal company, it's somewhat different. I came from two businesses. When I became the city mayor, I was doing the construction business, the systems of anti-fire, and I was working with international companies such as Cargill, Chumak, Procter & Gamble, so I do understand what is the corporate ethics in international companies. And the second business, which I started in 2005, that's the IT business, which is no longer mine. It became a corporate, it became a small part of the big American and now even European business. So business, it's about profit. Business, it's always about a benefit for the company, and those who are interfering, they are put to dust. So there are objectives that need to be explained to your client, why Coca-Cola has to be drunk not only in hot days, but also in the winter, and there are marketing strategies for that. We have a very simple job. We have to provide our citizens clean water that they can drink from the tap. And that means that we have to make our company effective. We don't have anything to hide. My mother would always say, the cockroaches never like the light. So we have to take away the darkness to make sure we don't have cockroaches in our company. It's important to understand the context of Mykolaiv. Whenever they say that whether this body will be independent if it's created by the council. And we have to understand that the city mayor, the city office, they are quite different, and there is no mono majority, especially in the city of Mykolaiv. I would like to remind you that before we had before the regulation, the centralization, there were out of 90 parliamentarians, there were 60 from the party of regions. And when I came, 26 out of 50, they were from opposition. They actually even made me impeachment, but I returned. So today we have selected 17 parliamentaries from this OPZG party and even 5 parliamentaries from the Shari party. That means that our city council, it's not buttons that they're just pressing. They will be discussing, they will be listening, they will be, of course, make a very well-grounded decision. Therefore, I believe that the importance of understanding by the Supreme Council of the independence of the local self-governance, that's a basic principle which is not working as it should in Ukraine, and understanding the fact how the 6013 law will influence the local self-governance and the local cities, not fully. So the Association of the Cities of Ukraine, who is the representative of the local self-governance bodies, has come up with its proposal regarding its law, and it's important that they would listen to that to understand how it's all working. Again, coming back to my previous IT life, there was one direction. Don't touch if it works. This was such a rule. If it's working now, most important is to not to break it, because I can see that during the war, there has the wish to break everything that used to work. So we have to be very much like surgeons, making changes that pertain to the communal companies, because there, most importantly, is not the business component, not the benefit, not the financial effectiveness, but rather providing the citizens with basic services, transportation, water, heating, and sometimes take into account all additional factors, the price for gas, electric energy, price, NERC, etc., etc. These two things are not compatible, meeting the basic needs and the financial result of the company. Therefore, ending my performance, I would like to say that today I'm the city mayor. I have initiated this question, and I really wanted that this question would be solved as SAP. I would also to replicate it into other companies who are the biggest consumers of budget funds, Pastrans, Electric Trans, knowing that I'm here at this position, I can move these changes. Whenever I would want that if somebody becomes the city mayor of Mykolaiv in half a year or in 5 years, in 10 years, that it would work and it would not depend, that it should probably just need to work, and it shouldn't be anything of that kind. I would like to thank our partners who are present here. Thank you for your active participation. I want us that such a body would be independent, competent, and definitely that apart from the issue related of the remuneration, that it should also become with the mission, people who would become the members of this supervisory board to understand that they are missionaries. Because today the question of water, it is very much the question of the future development of the city as such, because we have the question of the water. It's not only critical, it's above critical. It's basics right now for the survival of Mykolaiv. So I would like to thank you for this assistance. Please join to this process. We do have the wish to make this process together with our consultants, to launch it, to resolve it, take into account a session and start testing it. Today, really, we are very much interested in success stories of Ukrainian vodokanals. We are also very interested in their fuck-ups. I don't know the better word, and we also want to avoid that. But it's very important that we should do this SAP to make sure that this can be done further with other companies in the city of Mykolaiv, and possibly to scale it up and to replicate this experience to other canals, to other cities. Thank you for your attention. Many thanks. And I would like to remind you that why we have gathered here, this increased attention is this increased attention of the owner to the biggest company in the communal property, and that's very attractive. demonstration of their interests, let's come to Q&A. In case we have just 8 more minutes, Святослав, you can join. I wanted to give one more comment because I mentioned 3 members, but there are 4 of them, and the 4th member of the board is the representative of the Danish water channel.
Тобто ми можемо збиратися там кожен другий тиждень, а вона ні. Ну, тобто в неї їх режим роботи, вона теж приймає
участь. So their mode of work, she's also participating in other supervisory boards, but their planning of meetings a year ahead, it's an absolutely warning about the next meeting 3 months in advance. It's a normal process, but the meeting in 2 weeks, this is not possible. Therefore, there is the plus that we have that in the supervisory board. It's a source of other practices, other approaches, how it's working in other countries. But there, this normal way of life, it has this aspect. They can't react so quickly as we can. And in case you need to have this international partner in the supervisory board,
до наглядової ради, до водоканалу загалом, то треба це враховувати.
Then this should be taken into account and to talk in advance about it. They can't take so much time, so much effort like it's done with us. And the worst assignment is to have the consultant is to work as a consultant in own country, because you are working in the Central Asia, you are doing a project in your country, you're doing your country. It's not a question of the project, it's about the reality of the result, even if it's like 50% for what was planned in the beginning, but there has to be a result. Therefore, please take this into consideration.
Це дуже слушно, насправді. Я мрію, щоб ми колись теж почали жити такими горизонтами планування в 3 місяці. І я думаю, що ми всі до цього рухаємося, якось наближаємо.
At least a year ahead. Now let's start a Q&A session. You are welcome to share your comments and also please share your expectations regarding the supervisory board. In what way do you think the supervisory board can be a beneficiary for the company? Hello, dear friends, dear participants.
Вас чути, ви пропали.
Unfortunately, the speaker has disappeared.
Пане Борисе, так.
Борис?
Тільки в мене.
Вхідний дзвінок, який вибиває просто інший месенджер.
Somebody has called the speaker and therefore he lost the connection.
Так, я є, да,
Є, зараз вас
Can you hear me?
Переключення світла.
I'm sorry. The electricity was cut off and I had to connect to another device. Several years ago, we made an attempt to set up the supervisory board, but the main goal was not to support the company and not to meet the clarify some issues which haven't been known to the authors before. And of course, the expectations are very high. Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. Is with us again. Before that, we discussed that the utilities companies are not guided by the same principles as the commercial private companies, because the utilities companies have a set of specific functions. So maybe if you continue this discussion with Mr. Sienkiewicz, we will
Я би хотів сказати, що
finish this discussion. Well, I'm not going to elaborate on this topic. I just wanted to mention that when working on the draft number 6013, it's worth considering the comments of the cities associations. The cities association may fulfill the representative functions. However, it reflects the wisdom of all cities. I've started working in association in 2015, and it was soon after the start of our decentralization reform. I used to work in both sectors, private and public utilities sector, and I know that there is a big difference in terms of the corporate governance between these two. The public utilities company, especially non-commercial company, have to cover the social needs. So I'm urging you to listen to the association, to its comments. Do not perceive the association as the body representing the opinion of some particular mayor. No, our association is ready to fix some mistakes made by Верховна Рада in this piece of legislation. But I'm not going to dwell on it any longer, because this meeting is dedicated to some other topic. The city of Mykolayiv has a very bright city council. That's why you can be sure that the supervisory board approved by it will be fully transparent, and it is our intention to serve as a role model of transparent cooperation with our international partners. In Mykolayiv, we try to demonstrate in what way we reduce the corruption risks within the system. Of course, corruption is imminent to human nature, but still we have established a good system of working with the budget funds. Thank you very much. With that, we are ready to finish presentation. Alexei, thank you for coming back. You have now the time for response. Local self-government authorities sometimes pretend to be victims. In fact, nobody perceives the association of cities as bad guys, but there are some objective factors, and we know that the public utilities sector is a phenomenon. And this municipal ownership hardly exists in other places. You may ask our foreign partners. There are 14,000 municipal 14,000 municipal companies in Ukraine, and this is a big gap within the governance system. Every community may say that they are very efficient, but at the same time, there are many municipal companies registered on paper only, while there are 3,200 of state-owned companies only. So you can compare the scale and draw the respective conclusions. We do not need to have an argument, we have to cooperate. I think that the working group, consisting of about 50 people, worked on the 6014 draft that reflected the views of the association, cities association as well, because there were also representatives of the association. Thank you. Yeah, it's great that we are having such an open and frank communication of all parties. It's evident that the population needs affordable services, and all the parties have to combine their efforts. Do the participants have any questions? If yes, then please raise your hands, and unless you have the questions, we are going to wrap up. Yes, Svetoslav, have you raised your hand? Yes, I'll give a brief comment on the municipal ownership. Several years ago, we studied this topic. We studied the depths of the municipal companies, and most often they have debts, and many companies do not exist in fact, although they are registered. The reason is that the current tariffs are not attractive for business. The status of a municipal company allows the city to subsidize this company. So here is the reason. Inconsistency of tariffs with the market reality leads to the lack of business activity. And Great Britain, as the country, privatized all companies, all municipal companies several years ago, but now they are bailing them out. And this privatization actually did not turn out to be efficient. So this is the lessons that should be learned and analyzed before we start privatization of vodokanals, of water supply companies. Thank you very much, Boris. What about your comments? Yes, I agree with Svetoslav. This experience is also found in France. France at some point of time privatized nearly all water supply companies, but now they are experiencing the reverse process. So the question is quite difficult. It's a long story, and I'd like to emphasize that the tariff question is extremely delicate and sensitive for us. The state sets the tariffs for services using them as a political tool. Now, we see that the electricity tariffs have already been raised, and the state has prepared the population for this tariff rise. In our situation, it's not the case. Yulia, what about the next steps and next meetings? It was a question for you. Alexander, have you raised your hand? No. Okay. Our next steps. First, we are wrapping up our meeting. Thank you very much for this conversation. It has been a deep dive into the situation and issues. We are not going to set up the supervisory board just for the sake of its existence. The main thing is that it should fulfill its functions efficiently in the long run, while Водоканал should fulfill its strategic goals and provide the high-quality services. The City Council has to adopt a strategic decision on the supervisory board, and we are going to support this initiative, assisting its implementation together with MBS. Thank you very much for this meeting. You are going to receive the presentation, and we will inform you on the progress and further steps. So once again, many thanks to Vasilki Partners company that fulfilled a very important mission. And many thanks to Lviv, who has been the pioneers. In fact, it's not the most difficult thing is to be in the second place, trying not to repeat the mistakes made by pioneers. Thank you very much. I wish all of us light and resilience. Thank you, colleagues. We will select the part of Vladimir's presentations and send it to MPs for them to understand what's going on and why. And Yulia inspired me to recall a famous saying, we are not in the first place, but we are not in the second yet. So let's become at least let's rank second at least, and let's do everything better than before. Thank you very much. I wish you lots of success. Thank you and bye-bye.